All right, greetings, YouTube. This is Beautiful Mind. And this question comes in about solving a linear system with Gauss Jordan Elimination method. So let's get to it. So if we're gonna do Gauss Jordan, we just write the coefficient matrix. For the sake of time, I'm actually going to solve this in the calculator first, so I know what the answer is off the bat. Well, here we'll go ahead and do it by hand first. I'll save that for the end. All right, so we start with the coefficient matrix. So we have 1, 1, negative 1, and then the solution matrix is negative 3, negative 1, 1, negative 1, 1, 7, and then 35, and then 3, 5, 5, negative 20. All right, so this is the augmented matrix. Okay, so first we want to pivot on the entry 1, 1. So row 1, column 1. So we want to pivot on this entry. And so by pivot, we mean we need to turn that element into a 1, and then everywhere else in that column needs to be a 0. So it's already a 1, so we're going to use that 1 to get a 0 everywhere else in that column. So I want to change row 2 by adding row 1, and then I'll replace row 2. So on my exam, I'm looking for it to be written this way. I know that I can go ahead and do the third row. If you're not sure how to do multiple in one, just do them one by one, okay? But I'm going to do this. Usually I know when I'm using that 1 to find zeros everywhere else, I usually can go ahead and do it in one step. So then I want to change row 3 by adding negative 3 times row 1, replace row 3, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do these two steps. So row 1 stays the same, so I'm going to just rewrite it and keep it exactly as it is. Okay, so now row 1 stays exactly how it is. Okay. So now my row 2, I'm just adding row 1 to it. So 1 plus negative 1 is 0. 1 plus 1 is 2. Negative 1 plus 7 is 6. Negative 3 plus 35 is 32. And then row 3 is plus 3, negative 3 times row 1. So that's a 0. That's 2. 3 plus 5 is 8. 9 plus a negative 20 is a negative 11. Okay. So now we're done pivoting on that first entry. Next, we want to pivot on this element, on the element in entry 2, 2, row 2, column 2. So we want to turn that to a 1. So we do that first, and then we go to the zeros in the next step. So to turn that to a 1, I'm going to say half. Elementary row operation I'm going to do here is half of row 2 replace row 2. So that means row 1 and row 3 stay the same. Row 2 is the one that's changing. So I need to keep 1 and 3. I want to copy this. I would like to paste it, and I want to put it right next to it, right there. Okay. I need this to go like that, and I would like all of this to be block. All right, so now the only thing that's changing is row 2, and I'm just saying half of row 2. Now again, the 3 elementary row operations, one, you can either switch any 2 rows, or you can multiply any row by a non-zero number, or you can change a row by adding to it a multiple of another row, a non-zero multiple of another row. Okay. So if I'm taking half of row 2, that's going to be 0. That's 1, 3, and 16. Okay. So I'm still pivoting on this element. So I've successfully turned it to a 1. Now I want to get zeros everywhere else in that column. So I want to change row 1 by adding a negative 1 times row 2, replace row 1. So again, whatever row you want to change with, that's what you start, and then you add your multiple of another row to that row and change that original row. I also want to change row 3 by adding negative 2 times row 2, and then I'm going to replace row 3. Again, I need that replace there. Don't skip on any of this, because then I'm going to be like, well, which row are you changing? And that makes it harder to keep up. If I can't keep up, then I'm going to start taking off points. So I need it to look as close to this as possible. Okay. So it looks like row 2 is staying the same, so I'm just going to rewrite that. And since I'm on this device, I can just copy and paste. Okay. And I want it all to be black. Then I want to get rid of this. All right. So now row 1, I'm going to add negative of row 2. So that's going to stay as, and I want this to be blue. So this stays as a 1. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative 3 plus negative 1 is negative 4. Negative 16 plus negative 3 is negative 19. Okay, that should be row 1. Now row 3, I'm adding negative 2 times row 2. So that stays as 0. That goes to 0. Negative 6 plus 8 is 2. Negative 16 plus, 32. Negative 32 plus a negative 11, 43. Negative 43. Okay. Now, if I made a mistake, I'll have to go back and. Oh, wait a minute. I think I see my mistake. I kept feeling like there was a mistake somewhere. Let me see. Maybe not. Yeah, because row 3 changed there. That's 0. That's a 2. That's 8. 9. And negative 20. Negative 11. Yeah, that's fine. Let's keep going. So we get. I was hoping that we wouldn't get fractions, but it looks like we're getting it. So now I want to change row 3. I'm going to make that a 1. So now I want to pivot on this element. So I'm going to say half of row 3 replace row 3. So that means that my 1 and 2 stay the same. So I want to copy and paste. And I want them to be black. Okay. So now the only thing that's changing is row 3. So that's a 0, 0. That's a 1. We'll just. I'm going to leave it as negative 43 over 2. Okay. I'll leave it like that. So now I want to use this 1. I'm going to continue to pivot on this entry, on entry 3, 3. Use that 1 to get a 0 everywhere else. So I want to change row 1 by adding 4 times row 3, replace row 1. I want to change row 2 by adding negative 3 times row 3, replace row 2. Okay? So that means row 3 is staying the same. So I'm just going to copy this. Now, if this isn't correct, I'll just go back and find my error. I'm going to copy and paste. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Because I want all of this to be black. I'm going to erase this. All right. And I would like an arrow. Okay. So now row 1, I'm adding 4 times row 3. So that's a 1. That stays at 0. That goes to 0. So 4 times this, that's 2. That's 86. That's a negative 86. 96. 105. I don't know about this. Looks like a negative 105. Now, I'm going to run this through my calculator. Now, actually, what I would do is plug it into the original to check. I'm just going to use my calculator. Once it's correct, I'll show you how to do it without the calculator. Row 2, I'm adding negative 3 times row 3. So that's a 0. That's a 1. That's a 0. Negative 3. So that makes it positive. 4 times 3 is, that's a 129 over 2. Dang, that's a lot. 8 times 129. I feel like this is off. 8 times 129, 800, 960, 60 and 72. 1032. Yeah, I don't feel confident with these numbers. I feel like I made a mistake. What I'm going to do to do a quick check, I'm going to do this in my calculator, and then just to see, so I'm going to go to my matrix, all right, go to edit. Okay, first I want to do a 3 by 3. Then I have a 1, 1, negative 1. Okay, then I have negative 1, 1, 7. Then I have a 3, 5, 5. Okay, I'm going to go back to matrix. Go to edit. I don't want to change. No, not that. Go back to matrix, edit. And I want to change B. My solution matrix is rows 3 by 1. Okay, and I have negative 3, 35, and negative 20. Okay. Now, if I was checking this without the calculator, I would plug the x, y, and z into each equation and see if they work. Just for the sake of time, I'm doing this. I'm going to quit. So then I want to go back to matrix. I want to call this. I want the inverse of that. And then I want to go back to matrix. I go to B. I want to multiply by matrix B. Let's see what we get. Oh, this does. Let me hit math as a fraction. 161. We still did make a mistake. We're close. We got the negative 105. That 1032 is our error. Let's go back. So we're changing row 2. The negative 3. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just do this last part in the calculator. So that was the only one that was off. Everything else was good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say 16 plus, open parentheses, negative 3 times row 3, which is the negative 43 over 2. Then I'm going to hit math as a fraction. And 161 over 2. So yeah, just that last step I made a mistake. Because yeah, once I started getting these crazy numbers, it's like something feels off. It just didn't feel right. So then 161 over 2. All right. So I'm not going to worry about the rest of it. So I did get this result. Now to check, so what we're saying that the variable matrix x, y, z is equal to, has a solution negative 105, 161 over 2, and then negative 43 over 2. So that's our x, y, z. So then I'm just going to check it in the original. Let me copy this. Or, yeah, let me copy this. Check it there. Now, if I say x plus y minus z, so if I say negative 105 plus y, which is 161 over 2, minus our z, which is negative 43 over 2, I should get negative 3, and we do. Okay, now if I say negative x, which is negative 105, plus y, which is 161 over 2, plus 7. Now z is a negative 43 over 2. I should get 35, and we do. 3 times our x, which is negative 105, plus 5 times y, which is 161 over 2, plus 5 times the negative 43 over 2, and we should get negative 20, okay? So this indeed works, all right? So with that, we'll end the session here. From one beautiful mind to another, enjoy the rest of your day. Also, for anybody, if you like these type of presentations, this is actual free tutoring. As long as you have access, you send me pictures. I typically make videos for free. I don't charge. But donations are accepted at the link below. Okay? So enjoy the rest of your day.